In economics, whatever the government touches eventually turns to crap. And this is true even for the things that the so-called social democrats see as their sacred cows. That would be education and healthcare. No, everything the government touches turns to shit. And if you try it really, really hard enough, this eventually ends up true even in communist countries in the present day. So, yeah, let's explore. Hello everyone and welcome back to the propaganda basement. We continue through the little pile of Laosian propaganda, well, propaganda printed in Lao, because it's not just Laosian propaganda. In this episode, we'll be looking at quite a bit of, well, Westoid and Cambodian propaganda as well. It's one of the many reasons why I like this particular set of propaganda, because it's already translated into English and it's already diverse enough. You get multiple shades of communist propaganda. Alrighty, so Vintin Times, July the 11th, 2023. So there you go. Whenever you do something nice and then you suddenly get some good press. If you remember just last episode, a few newspapers ago, in the same month, really, you had talk about the Australian filth. Now suddenly it's all good because, well, Australia authorized some more companies to work in Laos, and therefore if you give shekelim, then it's all good. If not, then you're filth. So yeah, there's that. All right, so here's an article that should not have been written in the current year, but it is. So, inflation is a barrier to minimum wage hike, says the Prime Minister. Well, duh. Despite the call by the majority of National Assembly members for an increase in the minimum wage, the government has said this may not be possible due to the current high rate of inflation. In the 1980s, nobody would believe you that the Prime Minister of a communist country, a single-party state, would say, well, we would like to do more communism, but the economy disagrees. But here we are. The admission came from Prime Minister Dr. Sonehai Siphandon when the issue was raised in the National Assembly, after members said the pay increase was vital to prevent people leaving Laos for jobs in other countries, as I was mentioning in the previous episode. National Assembly member for Savannakhet province, Mr. Chayadet Puyabong, said he wanted the government to tackle the ongoing shortage of workers in Laos. This shortage is exacerbated by the fact that many people are seeking work in neighboring countries. The paltry wages paid to factory workers in Laos are not sufficient to cover household expenses as daily living costs soar to unprecedented levels, so they quit, Mr. Chayadet said. The government accepts that the minimum wage is inadequate and should authorize an increase as soon as possible. Although Laos is suffering from record high inflation, which has led to a significant increase in the cost of living, most employers offer only the minimum wage, prompting more workers to seek better employment opportunities in neighboring nations, particularly Thailand. Last year, the Ministry of Labor was instructed to discuss with the Lao National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which represents the business sector, to seek solutions to the problem. The government has said it is the responsibility of the Federation of Trade Unions to work with the relevant parties to negotiate individual or collective employment contracts, wages, policies, and benefits. The member said the government must tackle the problem of inflation and the fact that rising prices are affecting everyone's lives. I would like the government to review the minimum wage and bring it in line with the inflation rate. In addition, the government should do everything possible to encourage the production of more goods in Laos in order to reduce the volume of imports, which are increasingly expensive due to the weak keep. He added, yes, but the weak keep also makes Laos' exports much better. So there's that. So it's the classic problem. I mean, you see it in the West as well, but it's far more exacerbated in Laos because, well, it's a communist country. So up until around 2023, really, the idea of the government saying that no, we can't do more communism. No, it just is what it is. Yes, our currency is shit, tough shit. Deal with it. Right. The National Assembly acknowledged that the government has introduced measures to slow the depreciation of the keep, including raising interest rates and rationing foreign exchange reserves. There you go, for the import of essential goods. But the impact of these measures is temporary if underlying structural problems have not been properly addressed, they say. Failing to stabilize the exchange rates could see Laos face further currency depreciation, leading to further inflation, which is exactly what happened in the subsequent years. Because just as I was talking about in the previous episode, a lot of the problem was and is the result of many years of government policy. And no, more restrictions on foreign currency is not going to solve your problem because, well, your problem is a structural one. And the more you try to solve it via government means, the less likely it is for anything to go well. There is that say, I believe it is from Mises, that the more plans fail, the more planners plan. And around 2023, even the communists in Laos ended up to this conclusion that maybe we should be planning less. How about that radical idea? Let's plan less, and well, let the chips fall where they may. Now, of course, there is also the unspoken issue. Of course, you will not see it, especially not in English, in the official propaganda newspaper of the regime. But there is, of course, the issue that exists pretty much everywhere. It exists in Europe as well. It exists in more developed parts of Africa as well, which is to say that the salary that is over the table, as Americans would call it, is one thing. The real income is a whole different thing. It's a very common practice in countries with excessive regulation and excessive taxation and excessively nosy government, that paying under the table at least a portion of it is kind of the norm. So that is the case in Laos as well. It is the case in most of Europe as well, contrary to what the Европейский Союз says. It's really, really very common. And no, it's not just with migrant workers either. The natives have learned to use this as well. And that is also, of course, a problem. Now, in Laos, to be fair, they're not trying to tackle that one. So in a way, they're not as communistic as the European governments, who try really, really hard through various indirect measures like restrictions on cash and all sorts of that crap, to try to restrict that so they can collect better taxes. Now, of course, it doesn't work because, wherever there is a will, there is a way. And the reason more employees accept to be paid under the table is precisely because, well, they don't want to pay more taxes either, and they prefer to just have the money right now. So there's that. And then there is, of course, the problem with the employment itself. And so you see some of it here, right? Labor Ministry submits draft employment law to the National Assembly. The Ministry of Labor asked the Parliament, the National Assembly, to approve a new law aimed at protecting the rights of both workers and employers to help maintain a healthy balance in the workplace. Mrs. Bayaham Hatia submitted a draft of the law for consideration by Assembly members at a time when numerous challenges are affecting people's livelihoods and the economy, with depreciation of the keep and rampant inflation causing severe hardship. Presenting the draft of the law on employment, the minister said that the law was needed to ensure fulfillment of the party and government's wish to ensure that working conditions were fair for all involved. Good luck with that. She said the law covers areas such as dismissal, annual leave, salary, age, and gender-related discrimination. Here's some more Westoid colonization here, and many other areas involved and in the relationship between employees and the employer. Other topics covered are bullying and harassment, disability, race and ethnicity, religion, employee grievances, employee contracts, gender equal pay, redundancy, and working hours. Half of these are foreign in Laos, that is to say, Westoid imposed. Everyone wants to have a job, including being self-employed, while businesses are struggling to hire enough workers. A law is needed to help stabilize the situation, ensure employment is regulated, and enable more people to be satisfactorily employed, she said. All employers in both the private and public sectors should do more to create job opportunities while ensuring the conditions are fair and acceptable. Yeah, well, I was chatting with some private sector employers around the time, okay, this was published in July. I was having the conversation somewhere in November of 2023. And by that time, a version of this law had passed through the National Assembly. And the reaction in the private sector was like, goodness me, these people are dumb. Because, well, again, the problem was not, if at least not the problem, the most important problem, was definitely not, age discrimination. Again, most of the country is really young. The problem was not sex discrimination in the sense that they don't care about that. The vast majority of the populace is, I guess, what leftoids and westoids would call far-right patriarchy enablers. But in Laos that's considered being a normal person. So sex discrimination is not an issue in Laos, not the way westoids understand it. What was as race and ethnicity, that's not an issue in Laos at all. Nobody cares about that. There is some problem, some discrimination based on religion. Yes, I've mentioned about it, but then again, good luck regulating that, because the Laotian state doesn't recognize like half of the religions practiced in the country, so the state can't really help there. No, the biggest issue is inflation and impossibility of keeping up with it. Yeah, I don't know. Basically, the government was trying to address an issue that it created in a way that is not appropriate. And there's so many of these contradictions throughout the Laotian economy, right? Like, for instance, this one, right? The company that produces beer, Lao, which, by the way, is a very wealthy company. It exports in all over the world because their product is just good. I mean, it's basically okay beer, right? It's not particularly amazing, but it's not bad at all. It's just okay beer. On one hand, internally, inside Lao, it's branded as a success of the peoples of Lao, and it's implied that it's a government company and whatnot, when in reality it really isn't. It's a success of multinational corporate capitalism. On paper, the government of Laos owns 40%, but it has 0% of the decision making and administration purposes. Most of the decisions are made in Denmark by Carlsberg, and it is what it is, right? Same thing with the steel production, which is mostly done by European and Thai companies, not Chinese, and as a result, it's a very successful company. Same thing with electricity production. So all of the things that work good in Laos are the result of very cutthroat capitalism, whereas all of the things that the state is supposed to take care of, such as education, healthcare, minimum wage, workers' rights, all of that is shit. From this perspective, Laos is a very good place to study economics, essentially, to see why left-wing economics is shit. And everywhere you look, you see evidence of that, without the excessive poverty and without the, I mean, there is poverty, of course, but there's not the excessive poverty that you can see in DPRK, and also without the totalitarianism or authoritarian type of measures, because it's a pretty chill place. There's even that joke that Lao PDR stands for. PDR stands for Please Don't Rush. I mean, it's a very chill place, but nevertheless, the economy is, or at least has been trying, and not anymore recently, but has been trying until very recently to be an orthodox Marxist economy, which of course doesn't work. So there's that. There's plenty of these kinds of contradictions, which is why reading Laotian propaganda is so hilarious, because it just gets exposed of just how out of touch the government is, and especially the official propaganda. All right. Next paper, also Vintin Times, July 13th, 2023. Laos ready to issue 3.661 billion Thai baht bonds to fund national development. I don't know, okay, so they've been trying to build some more infrastructure and whatever, and they're trying to use government debt to fund part of it. This is pretty normal, but so many other governments do this. But please notice, right, the Laotian state issues bonds denominated in Thai baht, not in the local currency, in the keep, and not in yuan. So, uh, how's that de-dollarization working? Well, they're not issuing them straight up in dollars, but in Thai baht, which is de facto pegged with the US dollars. So there's that. That's basically how de-dollarization works. They trust, because again, officially anyway, the Revolutionary Party, Lao People's Revolutionary Party, which runs the country, is very much fully committed to the Chinese cause, right? Socialism with Asian characteristics, all of that jazz. But when push comes to shove, when it comes to things that matter, like money, they're not. That's how well the whole BRICS thing is working, and we'll talk about BRICS later this episode. Until then, let's look at some of these things. So, there have been some troubles at the border, whatever, who cares? There we go. Savannah Head schools facing closure due to teacher shortage. I appreciated this article, and I'm going to read it to you in its entirety because it's one of the few situations in the whole pile of newspapers where there is at least implicitly admitted that it's probably the government's fault. Here we go. A teacher shortage in Savannah Head province means that 25 schools may not be able to open next academic year, with provincial authorities hoping to find a solution to the problem in the meantime. A National Assembly member for the province described the problem to reporters while attending the ongoing debate session this week. In a bid to remedy the situation, provincial authorities will ask the government to award civil servant status to more teachers so they can take up vacant positions, or the province may use its own budget to pay volunteer teachers. Mr. Han Pan said many schools in Savannah Head are facing the problem of insufficient teachers. From what we see at the present, it is expected that up to 25 schools may have to close because of a lack of teachers. The main reason for the shortage is that 223 teachers will retire next academic year. Only 47 civil servant positions have been allocated to the province this year. 7 primary schools have already closed because of a teacher shortage, and 21 other schools have only volunteer teachers. Compounding the problem is the fact that volunteer teachers in remote areas are beginning to resign. They may work as volunteers for a minimum of 4 years and a maximum of 11 years. To prevent schools having to close, Mr. Hamhan has asked the government to approve civil service status for more or authorize payment for contract agreements with 1,151 volunteer teachers across the province each year. It is anticipated that this could cost about 29 billion kip annually, which is nothing. In theory, volunteer teachers who have performed well for several years can be awarded civil servant status, which means they are paid a salary by the state. The government is seeking solutions to issues surrounding volunteer teachers and the overall teacher shortage, and will formulate specific policies for teachers in rural areas. Education authorities hope to increase the quota of allocated teachers to replace those who have retired or replace them in other ways each year. The government will also consider postponing retirement for teachers who are still healthy, experienced, and able to continue teaching. So, although it's not said explicitly, if you look closely, the biggest issue seems to be the government policy. So it's not like there aren't people willing to work as teachers. It's also doesn't seem to be an issue of money, or the province not being able to pay them. But the issue is one of procedure and legality. Well, they can't be volunteer teachers, which again, it's a legal term. They're actually paid. They can't be legally speaking volunteer teachers for more than 11 years, but they also can't ascend or be promoted to civil servant status because the central government allots how many new civil servants you need. And if they need another 200 this year, but the central government approved only 47, then tough luck, sucks to be you, essentially. And this is just one other facet of how the government messes up everything it touches. So the whole thing is quite funny. Now, of course, this article does not mention the issue of losing pupils as well, but of course if they will have to mention that, that would be a problem. Once again, the Indian Times on CD-ROM. I really love these kinds of ads because again, this newspaper, the way it's written, the way things are framed, everything has a very early 1990s vibe, and then you have this with the CD-ROM, which also takes you back to the 1990s, and then only when you look in the corner and says 2023, it's like, whoa, how did that happen? In any event, there you go. Here's one of those things that you see claimed coming from China Daily, see previous season. Heat kills 61,000 in Europe's hottest summer last year. Now, is this true? No, of course it's not true. There's no way you can count that. It's mostly made up. It's the kind of thing when I hear it, I'm like, is that true, or you heard it in a public health press communique? Because the truth and public health are mutually exclusive by definition. Speaking of public health, here's another fun thing. Now the article itself is again something about more bureaucracy, effectively. I mean, the employment permit system is an attempt by the government to limit how many people it's an attempt at gatekeeping. If you bribe the government, you get to work. If you don't, then tough luck, you have to work under the table. So the government creates the problem, and then the government complains about the results of that problem. But look at this very subtle thing. I mean, they're all wearing masks, and they're claiming that these pictures were made a day or two before the article was published. So it's July 13th, so it's kind of early July 2023. Not true. I was there in October and November 2023. I saw exactly 0 masks anywhere. That includes state institutions, because you had to buy all of this propaganda, including the CDs and all of that. You had to go through state institutions because it still works the old-fashioned way. 0 masks. So this is straight up CCP-funded mask propaganda. You could see some of this in the West as well, but not in 2023. They were still doing it in 2022, but by 2023, the Western propagandists got a little bit smarter. But in a communist country, there's a long inertia to dropping an old style, an old propaganda. Right, okay. Let's move to the next one. Yeah, the next one is going to be even funnier because it has my favorite topic on it, BRICS. So, Indian Times, August the 24th, 2023. More green grifts, but this one is so much better. BRICS ties give impetus for growth, and it's Chinese propaganda, okay? Enhanced cooperation and better coordination among BRICS countries will bolster their economic growth and fortify the multilateral trading system, said market watchers and business leaders. I've already explained in the previous season where we read a lot of China Daily. What does that mean, right? Market watchers and business leaders means usually 3 people. By leveraging their collective strengths, these influential emerging economies can shape a more robust global economic resurgence, they said. Through increased trade, investment, and technological innovation, BRICS countries can catalyze growth not only within their respective borders, but on a global scale. China's foreign trade with other BRICS economies amounted to 3.69 trillion yuan in 2022, which is $506.76 billion, up 17% year on year. I'll just stop here. $506 billion at the size of the Chinese economy is pocket change. To be more precise, is the pocket change that remains after you have bought a pack of cigarettes. I mean, it's just nothing. Again, if this is for 2022, so it includes a lot more trade with Russia, and it's about places like Brazil and South Africa and whatnot. Again, $506.76 billion, absolutely nothing. So it's one of those things that this article would definitely not appear in a Western outlet because that would raise questions. So there's that. But again, this is how big BRICS is, like straight up pocket change. That's why all of the propaganda about BRICS and the global south should be just laughed out of the room. But here we are. Well, there's so many people who actually believe it. So going straight to the source is probably the only way to get more people to think. Because that's really all there is to it. I mean, debunking BRICS propaganda, all that one is required is to just think. All right. Yeah. Speaking of scholarships, only the ones that have a license from the state, comrade, only those can be recommended. Of course, I'm joking. This is not DPRK. It's Republic of Korea. It's South Korea. You see, by the way, right? Lao PDR officially has great relationships and is a great trustworthy partner of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, but they're not sending their students, especially not their best students, to study in DPRK. They're still sending them to Seoul, obviously. All right. Ministry pledges to expand 5G mobile phone coverage. Yeah, that was an obsession in 2023. Nothing came out of it, obviously, because, well, let's just say that there are more important things to solve in Laos than 5G coverage. All right, now some more Cambodian propaganda. The Phnom Penh Post, in a pivotal press conference on August the 22nd, former Prime Minister Hun Sen expressed his heartfelt aspirations for Cambodia's younger generation of leaders. He emphasized the legacy of peace and stability bequeathed by the late King Father Norodom Sihanouk. This was following the inaugural session of the 7th legislative term of the National Assembly, where a notable shift in leadership in both the parliament and government was witnessed. I want the younger generation of leaders to preserve our peace and political stability. My desire is for Cambodia to rise from being one of the least developed countries, progressing to an upper middle income status, and eventually becoming a high income nation, he said. Elaborating on his vision, Hun Sen stated, "Beyond the existing achievements, I hope to see positive societal changes, improved education levels, better governance, efforts to combat corruption, and proactive approach to societal challenges. These tasks are not trivial, but are significant challenges for our successors." Hong Vanak, an economics researcher at the Royal Academy of Cambodia's International Relations Institute, weighed in on the matter. Without peace and political stability, progress would have been elusive. Echoing Hun Sen's sentiments, Vanak believes that with sustained peace and stability, Cambodia can transition from its current status and eventually eradicate poverty. Now, to be fair, absolute poverty is very rare now in Cambodia, but of course, nobody will talk about that. We have the potential to gradually rise economically, especially with the foundation the previous government has established. He holds optimism that the new Prime Minister and ministry leaders will further stimulate growth, particularly in physical infrastructure, which is crucial for driving societal progress in the coming years. Now, you'll see that, again, it's almost entirely normative materialist. Now, to be fair, in Cambodia is also understandable. But what seems to be the unifying feature, at least on this side of the global south, is a total and intentional ignorance of anything that is not normative materialist. And you will see, especially from say episode 7 onwards, that in Latin America it's more like a mixture. It's a lot more moderate. There is some focus on materialism, but there is also a lot more emphasis given to, well, non-material things, but things like how's the rule of law working, how's the levels of happiness in the population, some moral values, virtues, things like that, which is something that you just don't see in the official propaganda of China, of Laos, of Cambodia. It just doesn't work like that. So yeah, that was relatively important to show. All right, so to give the contrast, here's some thing that aged really well, not aged like fine milk. American, Danish, Korean actress championing diversity in the arts. 2 years later, that aged like fine milk. London, since her international breakthrough in shows by major streaming services, American-Danish Korean actress Sandra Yi Sesindivers or Sesindiver, I have no idea. I should have checked the pronunciation, has taken her career's second renaissance as a call to address what she says is Denmark's lack of diversity and representation in the arts. Diver has had a prolific career in Danish theatre since being cast at age 20 in a local production of Miss Saigon. Claude Michael Schomburg and Alan Boobil's formerly critically acclaimed stage musical. She has appeared in the Scandinavian noir dramas The Bridge and Backstrom, and has written and directed her own short film depicting two women sharing a childhood secret. As artistic director of the theater company Dansk Dansk, she has sought to challenge conceptions of what being Danish means and looks like alongside her extensive advocacy work. Speaking to Kyodo News before the whatever actor strike. Oh, yeah, there was the actor strike, which, if you remember, I've covered this in the previous season as well. And the actor strike actually got more attention in the totalitarian or autocratic nations of Asia, particularly China, but also Laos, it seems, than it got in the mainstream press in the West, which tells you quite a bit about who's funding what and who pays attention to what. I'm just saying. Anyway, so before the strike, Sesindiver said her international success illustrates how structural racism and discrimination, this reads badly, rather than a lack of talent or opportunity, are behind the myth of a white homogeneous Denmark shown on screen. Born in Busan, South Korea, Sesindiver and her twin sister were adopted by an American father and Korean mother before her father remarried a Danish woman when they were 8. So she's not Danish. Period. I mean, it's just really that simple, right? She's not Danish. Never has been, never will be. 1 year after moving to Denmark, Sesindiver wrote her first play in Danish, which she performed with her entire class. Despite being encouraged by her family to learn classical piano, sing, dance, and act, she never viewed the profession as a future career. Nobody in the family I came from has really done the arts. It was like a healthy hobby. It wasn't part of my reality that it was an actual job. I think a lot of working class families feel that way. It was not until she was cast by a big Danish regional theater in Miss Saigon that pursuing acting professionally even occurred to her, and she credits the guidance of her fellow cast members encouraging her to attend drama school. But again, it's a lot of it's a huge article given to this particularly unknown individual, all exclusively just to bash, to just push a little bit more of, oh, but there's structural racism and discrimination. And, it's, the reason you see an all-white cast in a Danish movie is because those who made the movie are bigots, not because that's really what Denmark looks like, right? This kind of thing, I'm very glad that it's in remission in the West, but seeing how much attention autocratic communist countries paid to this kind of crap, I mean, again, the SAG AFTRA actors strike, who the hell cares? I mean, again, it is assumed that you know what this is. I don't, and I'm pretty sure that without Googling, most of you watching don't know either. So I would ask some more questions. Do you happen to have yuans in your bank account? Because this really does cough in ideograms and not the Korean ones. All right, and one more. Why Indonesia needs a long-term plan beyond subsidies to electrify its transport. So this is the most weird thing that I've read about Indonesia in a long time, because the idea that this could ever work on a countrywide basis is ridiculous on its face. It will never work, and it's still unclear to me, or maybe I'm just hopelessly optimistic. Maybe it shouldn't be that unclear, but it really is unclear whether it's a naive green grift. That is to say, the people who say crap like this in public just don't know exactly what they're supporting, which is a Chinification of a portion of its economy, of their economy, or it is an intentional plot just by the CCP just to increase the Chinese presence in the Indonesian economy. Sales of electric vehicles in Indonesia grew by an astonishing 680% in May 2023 compared to the year before, following a recent implementation of government subsidies. There we go. So, if you subsidize something, you get more of it. But then in the same region, I think it was Singapore, when the government abolished the subsidies, the sales of so-called electric vehicles, really all of them just a grift, not just shrank, but collapsed to the absolute zero, not statistical zero, absolute zero. Since March this year, different ministries have been issuing regulations on about $456 million worth of subsidies for people buying or converting electric motorbikes in 2023 and 2024, as well as reduced taxes for electric car purchases. While those booming sales seem like good news, I believe the subsidy program is a temporary solution to push for a widespread electric vehicle option. In the long term, I, as a researcher in energy system analysis with more than 10 years of experience in the energy sector, argue that Indonesia must set a long-term plan to electrify its transport sector with much higher renewable energy. My research concludes that Indonesia will benefit in at least two ways from setting a long-term plan. First, I get to grift your tax dollars. Oh, sorry, it doesn't say that, but that's really what it means. First, the country can significantly decrease energy subsidies by reducing fuel consumption in both transport and electricity sectors. Second, it will reduce carbon dioxide emissions from both sectors. Since when is this an issue? I mean, at some point, this will have to be called out. Now, of course, in 2023 it was a different context. Maybe now in 2025 we can start saying this out loud. But seriously, at some point this whole idea needs to be repudiated wholesale, because it really is just BS. We need more renewables to power electric vehicles. A research review showed subsidy programs are an effective tool to boost electric vehicle ownership in select countries such as the USA and Norway. Yeah, really, in Norway, when they abolished subsidies, nobody bought electric anymore. And once they got a more serious winter, nobody bought electric anymore. But of course, they won't tell you that, even though it was known in 2023 as well. That 2017 review suggested one effective approach was to provide upfront grants or exemptions from value-added tax. These incentives can encourage the ownership of emerging vehicles, whatever. Again, the idea that you can take a Norwegian solution, so a very small country population-wise, and a very wealthy country as well, and implement it to a very large country population-wise, Indonesia, which is nowhere near as wealthy as Norway, although it's still also a pretty wealthy country, but not as wealthy as Norway. The idea that you can do that, it's an idea so dumb that only an intellectual can believe it, which is precisely why this idea is pushed by an intellectual. Oh yeah, here's an interesting thing. They don't even put the author on it, which is even funnier. So yeah, you'll just have to believe that it's written by a researcher in energy system analysis with more than 10 years of experience in the sector. Okay, who the hell are you? Now, of course, you don't even get the name, which tells me another aspect. A lot of these ideas are intentionally subsidized, and if I were to take a wild guess, I will suspect that they're intentionally subsidized by the CCP. Why? Because the CCP is a big producer of so-called electric vehicles, which I suppose they're pretty much a good idea if you live in Cyprus or some other small nation, territorially small nation, which has a perpetually warm weather. But they're pretty much a terrible idea if you live in Norway or some place that has real winters. I mean, I would love to see someone driving a Tesla or a Chinese, or even better, a Chinese electric vehicle, which are even worse. I don't know, in Arhangelsk Oblast in Russia. I mean, yeah, that would work out just fine. So yeah, as you can see, the global south was, in fact, in 2023, still is today, pretty much aligned with the fashionable brain rot of the Western elites, even though, again, Laos is, geopolitically speaking, China's backyard, so not exactly the most enthusiastic or most excited Western partner in Southeast Asia. So, that will be one of the lessons for this episode. Another lesson, of course, being whatever the government touches tends to turn into manure. All right, that will be pretty much it. Still a lot to read. There's still going to be a few more episodes on Lao. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to become a member. Don't forget to subscribe, because without your contributions and without your membership, none of this is possible. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Cheers.